All right, everybody, again, thank you for your patience. It is a little past 7:30, and we are starting our meeting, our June 28th meeting. We are called to order. Folks, if you could please rise and pledge the flag. Roll call, please, Angela.
Here.
Yep. Saba Al-Zayed.
Here.
Amy Funahashi.
Here.
James Fee.
Here.
Megan Nolan. Diane Gundrum.
Here.
Tony Heil.
Here.
Kyle Shank.
Here. And Angela, for the record, Ms. Nolan did inform us ahead of time she had a work engagement that she had to be here. That she had to be at tonight.
And Mr. President, I'll note for the record that we were in executive session from 7 o'clock to approximately 7:45 with regard to real estate financing and acquisition.
Thank you, Mr. Bello. Oh, Mr. Truman, take it away.
All right, very good. Good evening, everybody. First up on the agenda for council consideration, approval of the June 14th, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Fee, seconded by Ms. Funahashi, to approve the June 14th minutes. Any questions or comments from council on the minutes?
I'm sorry, I will make a brief note. The minutes that were initially in everybody's packets actually had Councilwoman Al-Zayed's name omitted from being present at the last meeting. However, that has been corrected already, and each of you were emailed an updated copy.
Thank you, Mr. Truman. Any other questions or comments or from the public on the minutes? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up for council consideration, authorization to advertise ordinance 2022-002, amending Chapter 40 of Bridgeport Borough Code, Human Relations. Solicitor Bello, would you care to explain that?
Sure. Some time back, we created a Borough Human Relations Commission that's designed to hear disputes among citizens with regard to discrimination, either in renting or any type of discrimination based on protected classes, as well as sexual orientation and male, female, race, religion, et cetera. That ordinance was in place for the last couple of years, and there was several provisions within the ordinance that were optional at the time of its creation. At the time of its creation, there were virtually every municipality, every borough in the state of Pennsylvania was toying with these ordinances. So it's derived from a form. It's not something that's made out of whole cloth. And in that ordinance, there were suggested optional clauses. And in those optional clauses, it gave the municipality arguably more rights that a municipality should take. And it creates a lot of problems because it creates conflicts with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. So while we still save the meat of the ordinance so that citizens of the borough of Bridgeport have a place to come and air their dispute before our board and have our board mediate that dispute and try to come to an amicable resolution, we've done away with the provisions that conflict with the PHRC and the EEOC. And those organizations have never truly delegated that power. So we're giving it back. Fortunately, we never had to experiment with that aspect of the committee. I think the committee serves a great purpose, mediating the neighborhood disputes and citizen disputes, but it doesn't go, it saves the more litigation type aspects for the more sophisticated entities from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the federal government.
And we did, when we first discussed this, looked around at some of our other municipalities in the county. Mr. Truman, I think you looked at those as well. And we're bringing our ordinance into line with a lot of the surrounding municipalities by doing this.
That is correct, President Schenk. Yes.
All right, I choose to make this motion to authorize to advertise the ordinance.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Heil, seconded by Ms. Gundrum, to authorize the borough to advertise ordinance amending our Bridgeport Human Relations Commission Code. Any other questions or comments from council or the public? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, thank you.
All right, very well, thank you. Next up, for council consideration, authorization to send a letter to the Pennsylvania Public Utilities Commission in opposition to the proposed rate increases sought by Pennsylvania American Water Company. Members of council, members of the audience, you may have read in the newspaper recently that Pennsylvania American Water is proposing a substantially large rate increase on both their water ratepayers and their sewer ratepayers. Now, fortunately for Bridgeport Borough, we have public wastewater treatment, so in our case, only water ratepayers would be affected. That being said, it is a sizable increase that could potentially, if approved in full, increase the ratepayers' monthly bill by $15. That sounds correct, Mayor, correct? Yes, that's what I remember reading. As a result of this, Borough Council, as well as Mayor Jack Sear, in fact, Mayor Jack Sear was pivotal in suggesting this, is considering sending a letter to the PUC, as is the prescribed method if you wish to voice your displeasure or opposition against those rate increases from Pennsylvania American Water Company. There's a process behind it before the PUC considers the rate increase. They wait for public comment, much like we do prior to a vote. So this is the time frame within which to do that. And in order to send it from Borough Council and Mayor Jack Sear, it should be voted upon publicly.
All right, well, I choose to make the motion to authorize to send a letter, and thank you, Mayor, for initiating this.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Heil, seconded by Mr. Fee, to go ahead and authorize the borough to send this letter to Pennsylvania American Water. Any additional questions or comments from council? And Mayor, thank you for bringing this to council. Appreciate it. The public on this one? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous.
All right, very good. And lastly, for council consideration, approval of bills and salaries for the month of June 2022.
I choose to make the motion to approve the bills and salaries.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Heil, seconded by Ms. Funahashi, to approve the bills and salaries for June. Questions or comments from council or the public? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, very well. Moving on to the next item, which is unfinished business. Are there any members of council who have unfinished business for this evening? All right, very well. Moving on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports to share?
I'll share a report for the events committee. So the carnival was a great success. I think I was here every night, saw a crowd here, had a great time. So I'm looking forward to hearing how the turnout was. And then we also have a couple, actually, first let me mention our meeting That's coming up on July 11th. We normally meet on the first Monday of the month, but that would be July 4th this year. So just a note that it would be has been rescheduled to the week after, to the 11th. And then we also have another movie night coming up. The next one is July 16th, so keep that in your books. And that's all I have for today. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Funahashi, and the borough will announce what movie we're featuring on social media tomorrow for the July 16th movie night.
Sounds good.
Any further committee reports? All right, very good. Seeing none, we can proceed to the mayor's report. Mayor Jaxier.
Thank you. Just a few things this evening. On Father's Day weekend, I was honored to be a guest storytime reader at Junebug's Sweet Treats. They had a fairies and superheroes party, and it was very fun to be a part of on my end, but it looked like the kids were having a pretty great time too. So make sure to sign your kids up for the next party, which I'm sure is going to happen very soon, since they seem to have one all the time. This past week, as you might have known, was the carnival. For me, I was there most nights, and I think as Councilperson Funahashi said, it was there was a crowd for most of the evenings, and it was a really great time. I really enjoyed chatting with residents, and I had the pleasure of volunteering at the beer garden on Friday. So I just wanted to thank everyone who was able to volunteer, and I hope everyone who wanted to was able to swing by and join in the fun. It was also exciting. Might have been Wednesday or Thursday night when I was walking down to the carnival. I was excited to meet with future Bridgeport business owners, Ronnie and Peggy of the soon-to-be 4th Street Cafe. They currently own the Gateway Cafe right out of town. They're going to be putting in a new little breakfast lunch spot where Bridgeport Deli was. They hope to be open by September, and I'm very much looking forward to having a new delicious breakfast spot in town. So stay tuned for that. And just as a reminder, my next office hours are going to be this Thursday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. in my office on the first floor of Borough Hall. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Now moving on to the Chief's report. Chief Beretta.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by thanking a couple different the organizations that helped us keep the carnival safe as it was. Many thanks to Sheriff Kilkenny, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, and Chief Adam Berry for their kind assistance with lending their sheriff's deputies throughout the entire carnival. Also like to thank Pennsylvania State Police and Captain O'Shea from Belmont Barracks for helping us out for the last couple of days with a trooper. They're very helpful. The mere presence in uncertain times to have police officers at different locations really eliminates or lessens the probability of issues, and it certainly was of great help this time. Wanted to say that we did have a theft from a residence, and this was just overnight, and we have identified the person responsible, and we recovered, and kudos to Detective Bill Murphy, a 64 Chevelle that was stolen right after the flood. So that was recovered today from Philadelphia. So the investigation continues, but it's a good conclusion to an aggravating time frame when people take advantage of some of the difficulties that we had there. The Coffee with the Chief continues, and as far as this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there'll be ices on the Chief for the children. So I'll be posting that out in the next couple days. And hopefully I get that name for the movie, so we'll change the signboard for Mr. Truman for the next movie to be seen.
Chief Beretta, what do you want to see on July 16th? You have any
I
suggestions?
like a lot of movies. I just don't know if the children would be most appropriate for them, Mr. Truman. Yeah, so I'll leave it up in your good hands.
There you go. Do you, is that all, Chief? I wasn't sure. I didn't want to cut you short.
Oh, that's it.
All right, thank you, Chief Beretta. Moving on to new business. Do we have any items of new business for this evening? All right, going to be a quickie. Next up, open forum and announcements. Any announcements for this evening?
One announcement, Bob Kelly from Fox 29 had recorded some segments with Frosty Falls, including one that was live on the morning show, but the other episode will air at 6:30 this Thursday night on Fox 29, so watch to see a local business be promoted, and it will show again Friday at 1 p.m. I'm sure that it will be on social media, but follow Frosty Falls. It's great to see our businesses getting highlighted.
And not to extend the meeting any further, but since it is an open forum, did anybody else try Junebug's banana pudding at the carnival?
I did. I took one home. It was
That was
delicious.
unreal. Okay, so I don't normally get so specific with anything in town, but I feel like this warrants official recognition. That banana pudding was something special. So
Best,
if you get a chance.
best banana pudding I've ever had. Yes, it is.
Not the banana pudding, but the chocolate cake was really good.
Best chocolate cake I've ever had.
I have one more
sure.
quick. I forgot. The Garden Club will be meeting on July 7th at 7 here in Borough Hall. So, yeah, if you're interested in gardening, we'd love to see you. And we'll be sending out a reminder to everyone signed up on the email list.
Thank you, Ms. Funahashi. All right, seeing no further announcements for this evening, we can proceed to public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Yes, sir. Please, up to the podium and state your name and address, if you please. Thank you.
Norman J. Fizenmayer III, Pfizenmayer. Okay, 321 Hurst Street. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor. I spoke with you at the fair. I had some informal conversations with the mayor and another council member who's not here regarding the state of residential handicap parking in the borough. And I've done some research. We had discussed some things about, Conshohocken Borough has well, it's not a program, it's actually something that's done by many boroughs, where if you have a residential handicap sign, there is also a license plate number attached to that sign, okay? And if anybody parks there other than the car that handicap sign belongs to, they are towed, okay? I did a little bit of research. I spoke with Chris Stetler, who is a Bridgeport resident that is in charge of the Special Reserve Parking Space Program for the borough of Conshohocken. And come to find out, they've been doing that for 27 years. This is nothing new, okay? Also, I found that Norristown Borough also does the same thing. Now, there was a concern that was raised to me about the feasibility of doing this. Well, the thing is, these other boroughs have been doing it one for 27 years. So it is possibly to be done. And also, another concern that was raised is that the borough charges $200 for someone to get a residential parking sign. Well, according to the Conshohocken Borough solicitor, if you don't charge, if you don't charge people for parking permits, if you don't charge them for parking in the borough, you can't single out a specific group and charge them to park, which would be the handicapped and disabled.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree. The law says you're allowed to charge to create the sign, and the cost of the sign is what dictates it. It's not singling out anybody.
Well, they don't.
But tell them to call me.
On that
Tell them to
basis.
call me. I'd love to talk to it.
Yeah, they don't charge on that basis. And then, for the feasibility of, because it was expressed to me that if you have a residential handicap sign, that anybody can park there. That's a common problem. New Cane, not used to it yet. All right, so the thing is that I printed out the law from Norristown Borough, okay, which is state law, that, I can give this to Ed, print out a copy for you guys.
Is it state law that Norristown adopted, or is it Norristown law? That's not state law.
No, it is state law, Title 75, Section 3354, subsection D, paragraph 2. Okay, which I can read it to you if you want me to, or you can look it up on your own. I mean, basically, it says that the place is reserved and no other person is allowed to park there, and any unauthorized person parking there shall be subject to a fine and may be towed. Okay, and that's kind of the thing that we had discussed.
And is the impetus here that you have there's a handicap spot that you applied for, but
No,
somebody else?
There is one that I want to get, but I don't want to pay $200 to have a handicap sign erected when anybody with a handicap tag can park there, okay? Because I don't work normal hours like most people do. So sometimes when I come home, because I work in various locations, sometimes when I come home from Philadelphia, the whole block is parked in. And unfortunately, the building where I live in, there is no off-street parking that is easily accessible by me. Okay, I have a handicap placard, okay, but that doesn't do me any good when there's no handicap spots in front of my residence. Okay, so.
A little bit of history on how the borough ended up where they did. There are a lot, it's an aging community. It's a community that was built in a time when if there was one car per resident, it was a lot.
Sure.
And now, it averages, I think, the last time someone told me, it was like 2.5 cars per unit. So the problem is across the board for everyone in Bridgeport with regard to parking. Obviously, handicap parking, everybody is sympathetic towards that. I think the previous council weighed all the various considerations and decided to come down with purposefully not making the sign specific. And I think there was a driving force, if I recall. I think on one street alone, there were requests for 3 parking spots. So that basically leaves the rest of the block without, any parking for maybe not all their cars, but the majority of their cars. So I'm not saying the previous council made a right or wrong decision. I'm telling you that was the consideration. It wasn't done ham-handedly. And this council may feel completely different, or there may be another way to address the issue that we haven't even thought about. But there's some newer people on the council. I want them to understand how that council got to where we are today.
Yeah, I think if I recall some conversations we've had, generally speaking, and Keith, tell me if I'm wrong, but generally speaking, if there is basically one handicap spot per block, maybe one handicap spot that we will consider approving per side per block, something along those lines.
Well,
But
you're correct in the conversations and discussions that were had when we last revamped the disabled parking space application process. We would not, nor should we, nor could we, per American with Disabilities Act, put a bottom line quota on how many spaces we'll assign or appropriate to a block. But I think that the conversation that you're thinking of, Mr. Schenk, is that ideally it could be viewed as beneficial and sustainable if we were to potentially have up to somewhere in the vicinity of a space per block. And Mr. Fesenmeyer, is that correct? Fesenmeyer.
You did better than most.
Probably should have just said Norman.
Yeah, that probably would have worked.
I as Mr. Bellows said, we certainly empathize, and additionally, I appreciate you going a step beyond what the standard public commenter brings to the table. You did some good research rather than just lobbing allegations, which you certainly did not do. That's always refreshing on this side of the dais. I will say that for the benefit of your argument, yes, you have two adjacent municipalities in Conchie and Norristown that are, and I didn't realize it had been 27 years, but that that run honestly that runs counterintuitively to everything that I have learned and gleaned throughout the years. It's public on-street parking. therefore it's borough property, therefore just like if a church had a bunch of parking spaces butted right up against its curb line, there may be an expectation that that's church parking on Sunday, but we can't tow a car because it's public parking. Translate that over to disabled parking spaces. If it's a disabled, we can take the step, and I understand your confusion on the fee as well, or I shouldn't say confusion, but questioning of the fee as well. Somebody's putting $200 towards an application fee to erect a space that still isn't dedicated to them and them alone. But getting back to what I originally said, yes, we have Conchie and Norristown that have had this in longstanding rule in effect, but I was under the understanding that Norristown only recently changed it over to that.
I don't know how long.
To that,
I didn't mean to
they
imply
dedicate the
that,
space
yeah.
per that person. Again, I don't. In my teaching or in my professional experience, I don't understand how you get away with assigning a public on-street parking and public right-of-way to one property owner. And as Mr. Bello said, we have revamped our disabled parking space application within the last 5 or 6 years. We certainly are not vain enough to say it's a perfect procedure, but we think it has been working rather adequately. I'm certainly willing, Norman, to discuss this with you outside of these confines in greater detail and take that back to the Traffic and Parking Subcommittee and see if there is a desire or a justification to altering how we currently do it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think if it-
I was going to offer to submit, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I was just going to say, if it's helpful, we do have a parking subcommittee, and I'll make sure that Mr. Truman takes a look at things and comes to us with some information.
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be great. If I could submit to you, I printed out Conshohocken Borough's.
Certainly, leave it here for us, please.
Yeah, absolutely, and I printed the thing with Norristown that just had a citation of the state law on it as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mean to sound like an old curmudgeon, but why am I gonna pay $200, when I know I have neighbors that may park in it, and, and like I said, I'm not trying to be a creep, but come on, if I paid for it, why would I want someone else to park in it, right? So.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I would just point out to you that the density in Conshohocken is much different than the density of homes in Bridgeport. And that impacts parking across the board. I'm not saying it wins the day.
In Bridgeport, though.
I'm sorry?
It depends on the part of Bridgeport that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think the majority of Bridgeport, though. And I think, well, we'll agree to disagree on that, but I think the majority of Bridgeport, the density is higher than the density in the majority of Conshohocken. So that has an impact. And again, we're back to the reality that when the houses were built, they were one per house, and now it's 2.5 vehicles per house. There's often homes in Bridgeport where there's 4 or 5 adult kids, and everybody has their own car. So, and I grew up in Bridgeport and on the Grove Street, and I had to park 2 blocks away then. And the number of no, not you. Yeah. A typical resident. I'm saying I had to park 2 blocks away then, and when I lived there, it was 1970. So everybody has more cars now. So people parking distances away from their home. Yeah, but distances from home parking is something that the borough has unfortunately dealt with. And this council and some of the previous councils have made a great effort to build public parking. And it gives you any relief at all that we're looking at least one other place, perhaps another place for public parking, which doesn't directly affect you, but it alleviates the parking around you to allow you to have your space.
The part of the issue is, yes, like you said, people have multiple cars. We have people, that one person lives in the domicile and the rest have cars with out-of-state tags, and, they don't get them registered in PA, and, they park all up and down the block. But, for me, at least me personally, it's more of, the danger of having to park in the middle of the street to unload my groceries, and have to try to carry my groceries with a cane and try to, up the steps and in, which is hard enough, and to have to, there's no easily accessible way. If I park down the block, I gotta walk uphill, which is absolute hell on me.
Yeah, I would say, one, we are, we tend to approve almost all of the requests unless it's like one next to another, and that doesn't happen too often. And I know that the committees look at all of that. I do know with someone who people in my family have placards, and, you know, there's the issue of you give it to one license plate. My mother has a placard, she might give it to my father, like my dad, to use that car, or to me to use the car because that's what they're using. So, not for me to use, but because she's not driving then. So I think that there could be some problems with making it directly with one car for when something happens to that car or someone's doing something. So there's considerations in mind. And we do work, the police and the borough and everyone, if there are issues where someone is using that spot that has been chosen for someone, you know, we'll try to, you know, be helpful, but we don't have a ton of issues with people, you all trying to clamor to that one spot. So, you know, if you apply for it, you will most likely get it. And I think that your issues with using that spot will be minimal in terms of, yeah, I understand your concern, trust me, I do. I appreciate you bringing it up, but, you know, I think that if we can use the process we have, you'll probably benefit from it already without a lot of those other concerns happening.
You know, I had spoke with a couple of other residents who have handicapped spaces, and not that they have a problem, but they're like, yeah, I wish it was the same way as, you know, Conshohocken.
I was just about to ask that, actually. I would be
Yeah.
curious to know if other handicapped residents are running into the same issue. And then I would also be curious to know, like, the enforceability of that. Like, what would happen? Would they be towed? Would we need to put up signage to say, you know, this parking spot only applies? You know, there's a kind of a mechanical things.
Conshohocken, they've got the handicap, the recognized, you know, the standard handicap parking space thing. Then you've got, it says PA plate number, it's got the tag number. Then underneath it says tow away zone, et cetera. You know,
Got it. So that would involve like
little-
installing signage on
little
every current, you know, so there's just pieces
we got
involved.
brand
That,
new truck parking signs all over the place, so I mean, it can't be that bad. right?
yeah, I'm just curious to know what it would involve.
Norman, I mean, it just in closing,
Yeah, yeah.
no, please.
keep it way
No,
too
again, I appreciate your approach. You've acquitted yourself nicely. Parking in general, the dearth of parking in the borough has been historically and will continue to be a big problem, and folks in your situation feel that more acutely. When there are opportunities for us to make things easier for folks with disabilities and not have widespread or ripple effect, detrimental effects on other parts of the community, I think we will endeavor to do that where we can. So I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, sir.
Well, thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it. All right, who should I? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
In fact, you could leave it on the podium and I'll just come grab it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, council could certainly motion or entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
A second.
All right, everyone, it is 8:20. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your patience. Have a wonderful evening.